You know the song? You know the song. Jai Radha Madhava. You know the song. Hare Krishna. How about you? You know the song? I know you know the song. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Problem is, if you sit there, we're going to get another lady. If you could just sit over here. Yeah, right here. Oh, we have sheets. Marcy, yes. I'll put it on pause. This is a song about Radha and Krishna and all his friends in Vrindavan. Yeah, that song is sung before every. By the way, we have other chairs. Yeah, we have a chair. There's a chair there. A little hard first time. Yeah, take your book. Okay. She looks very comfortable over there. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitaclass Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitaclass Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, we sang that song, but I don't think there's a translation on that sheet, is there? There is a translation? No. Yes? Does it say what it says? Oh, there it is. Okay. So that's all right. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Page 701. On this 30th day of October 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 18 entitled The Perfection of Renunciation. Text number 62, page 701. Okay. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tatprasadat param shantim stanam prapsasi shashvatam tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tatprasadat param shantim stanam prapsasi shashvatam tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tatprasadat param shantim stanam prapsasi shashvatam. Go ahead, Mercy. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tatprasadat param shantim stanam prapsasi shashvatam. You want to try it? Either one of you. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tatprasadat param shantim stanam prapsasi shashvatam. It's okay? We're good? Alright. I'll read the synonyms myself. Tam, unto him. Eva, certainly. Sharanam gaccha, surrender. Sarva bhavena, in all respects. Bharata, O son of Bharat. Tat prasadat, by his grace. Param, transcendental. Shantim, peace. Stanam, the abode. Prapsasi, you will get. Shashvatam, eternal. O scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read that translation again. O scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, Rig Veda 1:22-20, as Tad Vishno Paramam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Paramam Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Sarvasya Chaham Hridisannivishtaha. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the Supersoul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the final chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is now winding up his instructions to Arjuna. And at this point, he's encouraging him to give up his independent streak. The whole context of the Bhagavad Gita is that it's in the middle of the Mahabharata, and this section of the Mahabharata is going to describe this huge battle that took place called the Battle of Kurukshetra between two rival sects of the same clan for the supremacy of earth. And Arjuna is on the side of virtue. He's on the side of the Pandavas. His brothers and himself were all born, really, children of gods. Mother Kunti and Madri were their mates, if you will, were all divine, and they're all devotees of Krishna, very intimate devotees of Krishna, or God. So, but they were cheated out of the kingdom by Duryodhana and his brothers, and now the whole thing has come to this, after a long history, to this just before the battle. And Arjuna has heard these 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. At first he was reluctant to fight. Krishna took the role of his chariot driver, and he went in between the two armies. He wanted to see who he was going to fight. He's a great archer, a great warrior. And on the other side he saw his worshipable guru, his teacher of the martial arts, as well as the grandfather Bhishma, and all of his relatives and friends and those who were dear to him. And suddenly he was very reluctant to engage in this fight. He didn't want to be responsible for killing them. He didn't want to, what he said was, well, even if we win this battle and win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of those who I love, so what's the use? So his original proposition was, I'll just leave and go and begging in the forest, you know. But he was torn, because right on the chariot was Krishna, and he had really arranged this whole battle for the re-establishment of Dharma in the world. This is one of the missions that Krishna has, as he says in the 4th chapter. Yadayadahi dharmasya glana bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadharmanam sujamiham. Very famous verse. He says, whenever and wherever there's discrepancies in dharma, religion, actual religion in the world, and adharma becomes ascendant, then I descend. Now, he very rarely descends personally, I mean as Krishna, but he comes as other avatars. He sends his intimate representatives, just like an ambassador, in order to reestablish his dharma. So this had happened about 5,000 years ago, and now the culmination was that the battle would take place and Arjuna's side would win, and his brother Yudhishthira, whose religion personified, would be reinstated. So now Arjuna is deciding he can't fight. So the Bhagavad Gita was spoken in order to convince Arjuna to fight, but in doing so, Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita, which is really the sum total of all the Upanishadic knowledge of the Vedas. It's called the Gita Upanishad. And so we've learned about the soul, we've learned about who is the Supreme Soul, God, what the relationship is. We learned how karma works. We learned what this world is, what time is. These are the 5 basic subjects of Bhagavad Gita. So now here at the end, Krishna is talking about the actual essence of the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. In fact, in a few verses he was going to say, basically, forget everything I just told you, and just do this one thing, and that's surrender to me, and then everything will be fine. And so he's coming to that point now, and here in these 2 verses, 61 and 62, he's describing how the Ishvara, the Supreme Controller, is present in everybody's heart. Ishvarak savabhutanam riddesher, riddesher jana tishtiti. Rid is short for Ridya, which means the heart. So each of us, each living entity, is accompanied by an expansion of God in the heart. And what is he doing there? He's watching. He's aware of everything that we're thinking, and everything that's happened in the past and that's going on now. And he's instructing us. He's giving us our intelligence. He says in the 15th chapter, Srila Prabhupada often quotes this, verse 61 in the 15:15, Sarvasya chaha mriti sannivishto matta smatir jnanam apohanangsha. That Krishna says, I am present in everyone's heart as what's called a super soul. There's this individual soul, living being, and then there's a super soul, representative of God in there. And what does he do? He provides remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Just think of what a blessing forgetfulness can be. At this point in history, practically everyone has heard of PTSD, and how it means that you go through such a traumatic experience, you cannot forget it. And it haunts you, and it can oppress your life. Often these poor guys come back from the war zone, and they've been through so much and been forced to do so much that they need so much therapy to try to forget it or try to live with the memory. So now the basic teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, the first teaching, is that we're not the body, we're soul, we're spirit, irreducible particle of spirit, of consciousness. And we don't die, and we're not born. We go from situation to situation. Now we're in the human form, the highest form. But we haven't always been in human form. And we may not be always in human form. We'll always be alive. But that consciousness may be inhabiting different kinds of bodies. So, now through all of those forms, Krishna's accompanying us. In the dog, the cat, the demigod, the human being, and providing just the intelligence, consciousness, to live in that body and work in that particular body. And each one we forget. Does anyone here remember the last life? I don't. Do you? Really? It happens sometimes, where you get glimpses, you know? It's possible. But generally speaking, there are cases. I mean, you know, because people are saying, yeah, but there are empirical cases. I remember, because I worked on Back to Godhead magazine. We have a monthly magazine. It used to be monthly, now it's bi-monthly, or semi-monthly. And back in the 80s, there was this professor in Virginia named Ian Stevenson. And he was a PhD and a teacher. And he had heard about cases, especially in India, but not only in India, where children, 5 years old, they begin to talk, and they're saying, oh, you're not actually my mother. My mother is in another town, a village, you know, such a, giving the name and what's going on there, who the aunts and uncles are and everything like that. Yeah. I mean, on YouTube, there's probably 1,000 things. And so he wanted, and he more than one of these. So he went to India and he investigated some of them. I don't know if he knew the language or he took an interpreter. And he questioned the kid, he questioned the parents, and he visited the other city, you know, and he found that oftentimes there was something to it. Yeah, they knew things that they couldn't have known, you know. And there's a famous case, American kid, on YouTube. I saw it, where he insisted that he was a fighter pilot. He's some kid living in Kansas somewhere. Yeah. And his plane went down, and he described all this, and he knew all the details of the plane. He's just a 5-year-old kid. The parents said they're some Methodists. You know, they didn't believe it. But he knew so many details that finally they meant he must be reincarnated. So occasionally you'll get these empirical things. And plus all of this near-death experience. There's one of my god-sisters there in New Dwarka. She almost died, and she felt herself floating up, and she saw her body down there, you know. The point is that the soul is separate from the body. And within the subtle body, we have two bodies. We have the gross body, which we call the body, obviously made of senses. But there's also the mind and intelligence and the ego. This is called the subtle body. When the gross body dies, which it all will eventually, it's just like a big machine, it eventually runs out, something happens to it. The subtle body goes on. And that subtle body, the mind, intelligence, ego, that's the template for the next gross body. If we make if we decide to practice spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga, then our consciousness can be made sublime and divine.
That's not spirit.
No, no, I'm talking about we're a combination. Each of us is a combination of spirit and matter. Part of that matter is very fine. Mind is not is material. Mind, but that doesn't perish when the gross body dies. That mind, our thoughts and our activity. Krishna says in 8th chapter, the central teaching, of our destiny. This is true for every age and every person at any time. He says, yang vapi smarang bhavam jajat jante kalevanam tam tamevaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever you think of, whatever is the dominant thought in consciousness, when you finally leave this body, that will determine your destiny, what kind of body you'll get. And in the 13th chapter, he said, it's a little different perspective, but the same idea. Purushak pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati jangonan karananguna sangosya sadasajoni janmasu. That the Purusha, sometimes we call it Purusha, which means the enjoyer. We're actually prakriti, meaning we're meant to enjoy through service of the Supreme, but when we try to be independent, we're called Purusha. And so the Purusha, or the living entity, within what we call the modes of nature, we're within nature called prakriti. As we associate with that nature, called the modes of nature, we determine whether we'll get a good or so-called good or bad birth. A good birth is a human birth, first of all, but a human birth in which you have some material comforts. You're not simply from day one suffering and trying, just to keep food in your mouth. And the best birth is one in which there is an inclination toward this spiritual life. Because the whole mission of human life, it's not just an accident, it's not just random. There is a mission, there is a reason, And the whole mission is to break free of the birth and death. Birth, old age, disease, and death are inevitable sufferings in the material body. But that's not natural for the soul. This is an artificial process. And so the mission that this is given by the Vedas, this saying, everyone learns as a child, right? Asato ma sadhan kamaya, tamasi ma jyotir gamaya, mrityu ma amritam gamaya. It means, there's two meanings given to this. Some is, don't stay in the darkness, go to the light. Don't stay in the temporary asat, come to the eternal. Don't stay in the world of death, come to the world of immortality. And sometimes it's said, it's a prayer, oh Lord, please lead me from darkness to light, from the impermanent to the eternal, from death to immortality. So how to fulfill that mission? That's the process of yoga. And it means attaching ourselves to the eternal, the supreme, the Ishvara, the Lord, Krishna, and detaching ourselves from matter. That's why it says the perfection of renunciation. Really, it's the perfection of dispassion. There's a difference between renunciation, in which you literally give something up, which is also there, but more important is this detachment. Because it's the attachments, the unfulfilled desires that we have in our heart, in our mind, in our consciousness, when we leave this body. And if we're all engaged in material activities, searching for material pleasure, inevitably we'll be dissatisfied. There's no end to it. Hold on. And so when we leave, those unfulfilled desires are all in our heart. We need another body to try to fulfill them. That's one understanding of transmigration. So when we have no unfulfilled material desires, and our only desire is in loving relationship with God, then we don't come back to a material body. We go to the kingdom of God. That's the whole point. That's why Prabhupada's famous phrase, let's go back home, back to Godhead. That's really the whole mission here. So that's what Krishna is describing here. First he describes what the Ishvara is. The Supreme Lord, the Ishvara, is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna. This is 61, the previous verse. And directing the wanderings of all living entities. He's in charge of the whole material nature. Who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. This is just a big machine, very complicated machine. Each one. And, he says in 62 we just read, O scion of Bard, simply means descendant of Bard, the great king, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. So what is Prabhupada saying? Surrender to the Supreme Lord. We have to surrender. We are servants by nature. We may not realize that, but if we're not serving God, then we're serving our senses, we're serving our mind, we're serving this, we're serving that, we're serving something material. And that service keeps us bound up. But Krishna, he can free us because he's also in charge of the material energy. He can free us from these bondage. Okay, any questions on these points? Otherwise we'll go on. Okay. Yes, please.
You mentioned about we have two kinds of bodies. One is the gross body.
Gross and subtle.
Another is the subtle. And then you mentioned senses is basically in the gross body.
Yes. At present, there's also something called spiritual senses.
Yeah, but even in material, in this conditioned life, the senses that we have aren't senses subtle, because what we have currently is the sense organ that we see, and senses is something different.
The sense, you don't actually perceive with your senses. You perceive, the soul perceives with the subtle senses, which act through the mind. That's why even at nighttime you're dreaming, but you can still be having so many sensual experiences, but your gross senses are dormant. Your eyes aren't seeing, even your ears. But within the dream, you're seeing. So the real sensation is going on in the mind. So they actually work together. You know, if we're going to relate to this material world, we have to have a mechanism to interact. And so you have the eyes and the retina and all that stuff. But it doesn't function unless there is also the mind, the brain and the mind and things going. That's where the senses are. That's why when you leave this body, you have the subtle makings of getting a body with other senses. Krishna says in 15th chapter, you leave the body, you're going to be reincarnated, and you get Shrotram, Chakshu, Sparshanam, Rasanam, Granam, Evata. Those are the list. And you get a certain set of eyes, ears, grouped around the mind. But you may be in a dog's body. You're still seeing and hearing, but you're not understanding much anymore. All right, let's go on. You had something. Go ahead, Boo.
So you said, like, my question is, giving up things, like, you know, giving, like, sex life up or drinking or association and stuff, like, giving that up is different than, like, detaching, because it seems like, I kind of, like, felt like you were saying that that's not very...
It's not that it's not important, but it's secondary.
Because you're supposed to have already attached to Krishna, so you don't actually, like...
Well, here's the point, is that the consciousness is constantly in flux. You're developing it every day. You know, what you decide to see and hear and do with the active senses, that produces your consciousness. But it's also determined by your consciousness. Both things are going on. So, for instance, someone comes in touch with this knowledge, comes to the Bhagavad Gita, and reads about how it's really important to be a vegetarian, you know, because of ethical reasons and spiritual reasons. In other words, as soon as you get the idea and you understand it, you believe it, that the soul is present in everybody, including the cow and the chicken and then all of that. And they're also feeling pain, and to cause pain and suffering to others is a great sin. And there's a universal accounting for that called the law of karma, you know. And so you suddenly realize, oh, every action that I do has repercussions, either good or bad. And just in the matter of eating, I can be causing so much suffering and pain. Why should I do that? Listen to me. So you make a conscious understanding. Okay, I'm going to not eat meat anymore, and you do that. You see. So that is now goes into your consciousness and into the vast accounting of your life, and therefore you change the course of your destiny. Whereas people who don't know that, who are completely ignorant, they just go on, doing what feels good, but they're performing sin out of ignorance. Well, ignorance is really the source of sin. And well, this is the problem. This is why just renunciation is not enough. You have to have prasadam. You see, if you come into the temple and you taste the wonderful prasadam and the pakoras and everything, you forget all about meat. So bhakti gives you, there is renunciation, tyag, but more importantly, there's a process to sublimate. I love this word, sublimate. Sublimate the desires. You see? Even the sex desire. There's a way of doing it that's Krishna conscious. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma varuddham bhuddeshu kamosmi maratarshava. I am sex life that is not contrary to religious principles. Within marriage, having saintly children and so forth, that's fine. Prabhupada once said, this is on a lecture I listened to, all of our great saints and acharyas, they all had mothers. In other words, it's not that sex life is forbidden. There's a way of having it in a religious way that's uplifting. Krishna says, I am that. But if it's adharmic, then that's very binding, and you're going to suffer for it. The whole idea is that what we call sense gratification is what binds you. And Rishabdev, one of our great acharyas and actually in incarnation, he says, Nunam pramakta kudute vikarma yadindriya priteya apinoti. Certainly those whose only mission, only purpose in life is satisfying the senses are mad. It's a madness. Because it's proven, it's shown, even forget about in reincarnation. Someone who's simply trying to please himself and has no regard for others, it's a miserable life. Someone can never be peaceful. Let's talk about peace here, right? You attain that supreme peace, param shantim. Param shantim is mentioned way back in the 2nd chapter. One who lives free from all of these passions and obsessions to satisfy the senses. And is satisfied by thinking about and serving and absorbing one's mind in God. That's possible. Then that is true, real peace. Now, that's why Krishna is named Krishna, because he's all attractive. We have seen anything that's attractive here, whether it's any beauty, any sensation that we find attractive, is just a reflection of Krishna's attraction. And so when we get attracted to the real thing, the attraction for the shadow, it goes away. And it works. And we've seen even experience as devotees. Prabhupada came into the middle of, sit here. He came into the middle of the hippie era, 1965. The sexual revolution was well underway, and drugs were everywhere. He comes right into the middle of that in New York, then even more so in San Francisco. This is in 65, 66, 67, the summer of love, everything. Prabhupada came into the middle of that. We're on page 703. And he said, okay, chant this mantra. He didn't immediately say, okay, give up drugs. He said, that wasn't his first message. He said, hey, chant this mantra. Take this prasadam. And so he's giving the higher taste, and then he's giving the prasadam, and then he says, and if you really want to advance and be serious and be my disciple, then you have to give these things up. So it took some time, 6 months, a year, someone to really get committed. But you were able to do it, because the Hare Krishna mantra is so powerful, the holy name of Krishna. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatadanyata. If you want to achieve the supreme goal in life, in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found. But to chant Krishna's name. But to chant Krishna's name. But to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. And it actually works. In this age, nobody's going to go off to the Himalayas, maybe a very small number, 5 guys, to try to just practice meditation all alone. It's impossible. So here's a meditation, the more the merrier. 100, 200. We've had kirtans in Ukraine, thousands. You get together and chant Hare Krishna. You can imagine the potency of that. And while you're in the middle of that kirtan, any thoughts of sense gratification is completely out of your mind. Because it's spiritual pleasure that really completely overwhelms the material pleasure. And it's possible to enjoy it all the time. It's actually, the science is like this. How's it go? Bhajaniya padama buddhasa sukadvam, something like that. This is a phrase from one of Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas. The science of Krishna consciousness is to take one's happiness and pleasure only in the happiness of the beloved Lord. And because Krishna's capacity to enjoy is unlimited, he's God. Anandamayo bhyasat. He's made of ananda. And we're part of that ananda, but we've detached from it. But if we can take our pleasure in his pleasure, then our capacity to enjoy increases unlimitedly. But only in that way, you see. So that's the science of it, and it actually works. So here Krishna is winding up his instructions, and he says, you surrender to him utterly, and you will enjoy supreme peace. And supreme peace has to be also with pleasure, otherwise you can't be peaceful. So now, let's go on. And now he's going to talk about the most confidential knowledge. First he's going to work up confidential, more confidential, and most confidential, and he's back to what he taught at the end of chapter 9. Text 63, page 702. Iti te jnanam akyatam guyad guyataram maya vimrishai tad asheshena yatechasi tathakuru. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. Purport. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahmabhuta. One who is in the Brahmabhuta condition is joyful. He never laments, nor does he desire anything. This is due to confidential knowledge. Krishna also discloses knowledge of the Supersoul. This is also Brahman knowledge of Brahman, but is superior. So you get Guyam, which is confidential, Guyataram, more confidential, of the Supersoul. And then in a few verses he's going to describe Guyatatam, I think, which is most confidential. Here the words Yatejasi Tathakuru, as you like you may act, indicate that God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the Supersoul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the Supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Arjuna is being directly ordered by the Personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the best interest of the living entities. It is not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. So, this idea of deliberating, this is what all these books are for. This is what the classes are for. Because the human being is unique amongst all species because of the intelligence. The intelligence is our discriminating factor. We don't have to simply act according to the whims of the senses. That's more or less animal life. The human intelligence is meant to direct the mind and the senses to act for the best ultimate interest. There's this concept of Shreyas and Preyas, which is really central to our philosophy. Everyone knows what these are, although they may not know the names. Preyas means immediate pleasure. You know, what you want to just do to enjoy. Shreyas means ultimate pleasure. We experience it all the time. The mother knows the kid turns 5, right? And it's time to go to school. Up until that time, he's been completely in charge. And whatever you like to do, you can ride your bike, you can play all day, whatever, But now it's time to get serious because the parents know if the kid doesn't get educated, he's going to have a difficult life. So I don't know. I don't recall my first day in school, but I know that a lot of my friends were not very happy to be, taken away from their games and everything, and they have to sit in this classroom and they have to learn how to get along with others in a more civilized way and everything. So the parents know, the kids don't know, but the parents know that prayas, that shreyas is more important. Shreya is good education, prosperity and a nice life. So, but the ultimate shreyas is self-realization, God-realization, liberation from birth and death. So we actually have that choice at every moment. And the whole surrender of Arjuna began with this choice of wishing to have Shreyas, the ultimate good. Because he sensed that his decision was being made on like a gut reaction. He had all this affection for his friends and everything, and but it was more or less mundane. And he knew that. So, but he was torn, and he was confused about Dharma. So he says, Karpa nidosho pahata swabhava prachami tvam dharma sammuda cheta. I'm bewildered about what Dharma really is. And in Vedic culture, Dharma is very, very important. Am I doing the right thing now? Or am I doing something that's sinful that's going to result in a lot of suffering? So, Karpa nidosho, by this miserly weakness, I've lost my real nature. Upahata swabhava. Swabhava means my nature as a confident kshatriya in doing the right thing. I don't know what the right thing is. So then he says, Yakshreyaksyan nishitam bruhitanri. You please tell me how I can achieve Shreya. Yakshreyaksyan, how my ultimate good can come about. Tell me for certain, because I don't know. I'm confused. This is our actual nature. We come into this world, we're ignorant. But if we have the good fortune to come into the right association and the right source, then we should really inquire, what is that ultimate good and how can I attain it? It's known as sadhya and sadhana. We may be familiar with this word. Sadhana it means a practice, but it means to go to a goal. And that goal should be the ultimate good. Shreya or nikshreya, the ultimate good. So Arjuna changed the relationship. He's arguing with his friend, Krishna, back and forth. And Krishna is not giving him any transcendental knowledge. He's speaking as one kshatriya to another. Says, how did this weakness come about you? Get up and fight. What's the matter with you? And I said, oh, how can I fight, send arrows against Bhishma and my guru? I can't do it, So he's torn. So that kind of conversation didn't help. So Arjuna says, okay, now I'm surrendering as your shishya, as your disciple. And shishya means one who is willingly surrendering to be controlled by someone who is the embodiment of knowledge. And who could be a better guru than Krishna, the Adi Guru? So everything changed. And that's really the decision. I've been thinking lately about how this Shreyas and Prayas is like a universal principle. Let's just change our perspective for one moment and think about climate change. I mean, everyone knows about it, right? And it's happening all around us with this crazy weather. I've been here for 30 years. Anyone who's lived in one place, the weather has changed, I mean, we haven't had big hurricanes and everything, but suddenly it gets very hot in January and it's cold, it's raining at different times. And all of these hurricanes going on. And I lived in Miami Beach, on the beach, for 6 years, back in the 80s. We never had what they have now, which is called sunny day flooding. It's coming from high tide. And the water is seeping in under the road, and suddenly the road is flooding because of the ocean water. It's rising. The seas are rising. All of this melting. So this is happening now, and the scientists are all saying 95%. Yeah, it's because of all of this carbon dioxide we're putting in, and and we have to change our ways, or like 70%. Since 1970 and now, 70% of the animals of all kinds have died off. We're not talking about extinction now. We're talking about numbers of, big animals. Insects are dying off. So the point I'm making is, these oil companies, it's known, Exxon, they knew about this way back. They said, yeah, we know it because they have all the scientists in it. But what did they do? They buried it because it's going to hurt profits. People are going to get away from oil-based things, and what's going to happen? So the capitalist system is based on prayers. It's based on profit, you see? And so the very knowledge This is called suicide for the whole world. But these guys who are, rise to the top, their one mission in life is to increase the stock price or whatever, So this is demonic. They're risking the entire health of the earth. They know, for the immediate good of making, somehow imagining that we're going to have some place to live. You see the problem? That desire, that greed, is covering their reasonable knowledge. And here people are saying, well, what are you doing here? What about your own grandchildren? We don't care. That's what they're saying. So this principle of Shreyas and Preyas is universal. And when we understand, are we going to live our life according to what we know is right and what is good and what will actually produce ultimately our own happiness, real happiness, eternal happiness, or are we just going to go for the immediate thing, and put it off and cover our knowledge? That's the choice. Srila Prabhupada has given us that choice by bringing this actual knowledge and propagating it and showing by his own example and by those who are sincere followers that it's possible to live this way and remain peaceful and confident even when your whole environment is going nuts. So that's what Krishna is describing here, and this more confidential knowledge, and it all culminates in think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down to me, and that's the choice we have. So what time is it now? Oh, it's 8 o'clock. All right, we're going to read a little bit from Krishna book. It's a wonderful chapter. So 64 next time we meet? I think we just read 63.
Yeah.
Okay. So there won't be a class tomorrow. There's a special Halloween Harinam. You're all invited. And we're going to go down to Old Town. We don't go down to the gas lamp because there's no more free parking. But we have free parking in Old Town. And I'm sure it'll be very exciting, so you come out and chant together. But now, we're going to read a little bit from our Krishna book chapter. Krishna book is a summary study, a running translation with interspersed commentary of the 10th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, which is a even more advanced book of knowledge than the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we got 2 readings going on here. And we are in the middle of this wonderful description of Bahulashva and Shuddhadev. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this was now right after the prayer of Shuddhadev. And so Srila Prabhupada is describing. The Supreme Lord Krishna is naturally very much affectionately inclined to his devotees. When he heard Shuddhadev's prayers, Shuddhadev is like a poor Brahmin, and Bahulashva is a king, and they're both great devotees. So he went to this town of Mithila to visit them, both. And they were both so sincere that he expanded himself in 2. He was with all the sages, and and so he's visiting them both simultaneously, but they don't know that. They think he's come to their place. So he's naturally affectionate inclined to his devotees. When he heard Shuddhadev's prayers of pure devotion, he was very much pleased, and immediately caught his hands and addressed him thus: "My dear Shuddhadev, all these great sages, Brahmins, and saintly persons have been very kind to you by personally coming here to see you. You should consider this opportunity to be a great fortune for you. They're so kind that they're traveling with me, and wherever they go, they immediately make the whole atmosphere as pure as transcendence, simply by the touch of the dust of their feet. People are accustomed to go to the temples of God. They also visit holy places of pilgrimage, and after prolonged association with such activities for many days, by touch and by worship, they gradually become purified. But the influence of great sages and saintly persons is so great that just by seeing them one immediately becomes completely purified. Moreover, the very purifying potency of pilgrimages or worship of different demigods is also achieved by the grace of saintly persons. A pilgrimage site becomes a holy place because of the presence of the saintly persons. My dear Shuddhadev, when a person is born as a Brahmin, he immediately becomes the best of all human beings. And if such a Brahmin remaining self-satisfied, practices austerities, studies the Vedas, and engages in my devotional service, as is the duty of the Brahmin, or in other words, if a Brahmin becomes a Vaishnav, how wonderful is his greatness! My feature of four-handed Narayan is not so pleasing or dear to me as is a Brahmin Vaishnav. Brahmin means one well conversant with Vedic knowledge. A Brahmin is the insignia of perfect knowledge, and I am the full-fledged manifestation of all gods. Less intelligent people do not understand me, nor do they understand the influence of the Brahmin Vaishnav. They are influenced by the three modes of material nature, and thus dare to criticize me and my pure devotees. A Brahmin Vaishnav, or a devotee already on the Brahminical platform, can realize me within his heart, and therefore he definitely concludes that the whole cosmic manifestation and its different features are effects of different energies of the Lord. Thus he has a clear conception of the whole material nature and the total material energy, and in every action such a devotee sees me only and nothing else. My dear Shuddhadev, you may therefore accept all these great saintly persons, Brahmins and sages, as my bona fide representatives. By worshipping them faithfully, you will be worshipping me more diligently. I consider worship of my devotees to be better than direct worship of myself. If someone attempts to worship me directly without worshipping my devotees, I don't accept such worship, even though it may be presented with great opulence. Close quote. In this way, both the Brahmin Shuddhadev and the king of Mithila, Bahulashra, under the direction of the Lord, worshipped both Krishna and his followers, the great sages and saintly Brahmins, on an equal level of spiritual importance. Both Brahmin and king ultimately achieved the supreme goal of being transferred to the spiritual world. The devotee does not know anyone except Lord Krishna, and Krishna is most affectionate to his devotee. Krishna remained in Mithila both at the house of Brahmin Shuddhadev and at the palace of King Bahulashra. And after favoring them lavishly by his transcendental instructions, he went back to his capital city, Dwarka. Hare Krishna. Are you okay? Haribol Prabhu. Give him a poke. You alright? Jet lag, yeah. Okay, we're almost through this chapter, then we'll have a kirtan. I know you won't fall asleep in the kirtan. The instruction we receive from this incident is that King Bahulashra and Shuddhadev the Brahmin were accepted by the Lord on the same level because both were pure devotees. This is the real qualification for being recognized by the Supreme Lord. Because it has become the fashion of this age to be falsely proud of having taken birth in the family of a Kshatriya or Brahmin, we see persons without any qualification other than birth claiming to be a Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishya. But as stated in the scriptures, Kala Shuddha Shambhava, in this age of Kali, everyone is born a Sudra. This is because there is no performance of the purificatory processes known as samskaras, which begin from the time of the mother's pregnancy and continue up to the point of the individual's death. Okay, so it's almost time, but I'm going to think I'll start a new tradition now. And that is, we'll end with a little poem before we have our kirtan. So this is a poem about the holy name, chanting the holy name. When we chant Hare Krishna, Hare is actually addressing Radha, Srimati Radharani, the internal pleasure potency of Krishna. And so when we say Hare, and Krishna is Krishna. So this is a verse by a great poet named Raghunath Das Goswami. I'll give you the first line of Sanskrit. Radheti nama navasundara siddhu mugdam. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. And on that note, we'll adjourn for kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Tomorrow, once again, we will congregate down at Old Town for Harinam. Something 6:30, I think. I do. Write me an email. But it's a very secret email address. Only for those in this room and on the internet. Dravida108 at Gmail. Krishna Govinda. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasachari Chatarine Namaste Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Lamp, also lamp. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radha Nitya Gora Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitya Gora Hari Bo Gopenandi Hari Bo Jai Gita Prabhu Dravida Prabhu Ashtotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai O Vishnupad Paramahamsa Dravida Acharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Namam Devotee Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Praise Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Dwarka Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mahi Ki Jai Yamuna Mahi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Holy Name of Damodar Ki Jai Tamave Bhakti Jai All glory to the Son of the Lord All glory to the Son of the Lord All glory to the Son of the Lord All glory to Shri Guru and Guru Krishna Prabhupada Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Radha Radha Hiranyakashipo Vakshaha Ashilatankana Kalaye Ito Nishinga Parato Nishingo Yato Yato Yanitato Nishinga Sambahe Nishingo Ringaye Nishingo Yasehamadi Saranam Prapade Savakarakam Malavare Naka Abhuta Shinga Sandaritahe Hannatipo Tarum Vinga Keshavapita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Savakara Kamalavare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev, Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev. Jaya Nrsimhadev, 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 Jaya Nrsimhadev. Jaya Narahari, 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 Jaya Narahari. Sing Bhagavan ki jai, Sadan Maharaj ki jai, Gopainananda Hari Hari Bol. Thank you.
Alright, you got prasadam tonight?
Alex needs a triple size plate. Quadruple size plate. Hey, I'm doing like 5 times. Don't you eat that? I thought you were going to get the girl. Don't you eat it.
Looks like I scared, I guess we will let God talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, what could I do?
That sounds like it interferes with my Sanskrit.
It's Ishwar.
Like that.
It's all about the Ishwar.
Yeah. Oh, that was the verse?
Well, that was the previous verse, and that's where it says surrender to him. So
Yeah.
couldn't very well mask it as
They never
Please.
came in before?
Huh?
They never came in?
I never saw
No, they're
her.
brand new.
I don't think they were new. Anyway, they got some.
Alex needs at least half of this.
Who?
And 5 quarters.
Purple, please. Some subject?
Yeah.
Is okay?
They seem like they like it, but then like you're.
Yeah, you go after you. Today after you.
You want to go? You can go first.
Actually, give me a
Little bit new. Okay, how about some, little hat? So what brings you here? Usually something special.
I was just on, like, ISKCON with
Oh,
Zach
oh,
and
nice.
CCSD, so
Oh, nice.
just like,
Cool. Is that nice? How about a food? How about a little sweet? And? And? You got everything. Okay. Oh, we have a whole other offering. Look at this. Gorgeous. Oh, you see, the thing is, hold on, there's a certain science to it. We have 2 offerings in it. Yeah, this way.
Oh,
Next, see the notebook, it all makes sense.
chorus.
We got chorus, all right, these are the chorus. 3 for chorus. Oh,
And this.
the whole piece.
Did I say I was hungry?
No, but they got a rhino. They were just
Delete the whole thing.
They even have a choice to buy it.
a little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you gonna?
How about a nice police?
There's more now, there's different stuff up there.
Spoon, you don't do spoon?
I don't need
You don't need spoon? How about you?
That's it, some sweet.
Sweet, why not?
Very little.
Is it
Yeah,
okay?
just salmon, like, yeah.
Yeah, this is birthday actually.
Yeah.
Very good. It's all here for you. Let's see what you can take.
Where are you headed now?
Airport. So,
No, I
okay.
mean, like, what?
You want to eat this one?
No, I gotta read it.
You had some house?
Yeah.
You've been at home, you spent the day.
Where's that? Yeah.
Basically, you find little things to do.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
How about
fly
North
from
Pole?
here.
Pretty good.
I have an overnight flight that reaches
Okay.
Charlotte tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock,
Mm.
Eastern time.
That's it.
Then I have a halt for 3 hours.
Hopefully you can sleep.
Then by